Hi everybody, I'm Crazy Eddie, and this is Terra Firma Punk. And today I have brought you all together in this lovely spring day to talk about farming. You see, I've been doing this all wrong. Plants need to be planted near water. And I had thought that the fact that farmland remains farmland at any distance from water meant that that was not really a requirement. But as it turns out, you need to be near some water. A river, a lake, whatever. I'm not sure whether ocean water counts or not. It probably shouldn't because salt water. But at any rate, I have some nice landscape here. And this water should work. So hopefully the sugarcane should grow. Now this old farmland, you can't just turn it back to dirt by trampling it. And if you dig it up, it disappears and doesn't come back. And that's to keep you from taking advantage of some rules about fertilizing and soil nutrients, which I'll get into in a moment. What I'm going to do right now is pick up all these plants' seeds and take them over by the river where they can get some moisture. And maybe I'll be able to plant them in a more organized fashion too. Another important thing to remember is that you need to rotate your crops every season or so, which basically means putting them in a different lot than you did the last year, so that you don't end up losing all the nutrients in that soil. There are 3 different kinds of nutrients, and each plant takes a different kind. Well, plants have different nutrient requirements. And you can look those up in the wiki. Soil that hasn't been planted in for a year should have pretty much neutral nutrient amounts. Another useful thing to keep track of is temperatures. Some plants you can't even plant if the temperature is too cold. Jute is the most sensitive of these. You can check your temperature in the F3 screen, in that next to the bottom line on the left. My current temperature is 19, which is actually pretty good. Jute can die at a temperature of 5 or less. And as I mentioned before, jute is the most sensitive of crops. Now, if you have a metal hoe, supposedly you can check the nutrients in the soil. You just have to switch your tool mode to the one that looks kind of like a plant. You can also check moisture. However, it requires a certain amount of skill. You have to be an expert with agriculture. I'm only an adept yet. So I can't quite do it yet. And it's possible that my use of shaders could be changing things too. But yeah, it looks like we have something going on with the moisture here. Let me try turning off my shader and see what happens. Oh yeah, you can certainly see the moisture levels there. And you can see the difference here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meters from the river is where it goes dry. So I'll be leaving my shaders off at least while I'm planting. And I also really should be looking up the nutrient requirements of these plants and taking them into account while I'm doing this planting. But for the first season, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. It'll be next season where I want to keep track of where I have already planted stuff. Alright, so there's your first season basic planting agriculture lesson. So, now that we know all this about growing food, we can turn on our shaders again and talk about preserving it. After all, it's nice to have all this food, but it's less nice if it rots away before you can get through the winter. Or in this case, through the spring. So I guess we'll talk about this little fella first. These ceramic vessels will make your foods rot half as fast. And they'll do even better if you can keep them in a dark place. Which is something I need to change here. But I have plans for that. Another thing that decreases your rot is keeping them in a cold place. And the colder it is, the slower your food will rot. Now, since altitude also decreases the temperature, you could build a tower and store your food at the very highest level and keep it pretty cold, and that would actually work. It would be a pain in the neck to build, but it would work. And there's an even better method of preserving your stuff, but it involves fruits, which I don't have. basically once you can make alcohol, then you can make vinegar. Then you can mix your vinegar with seawater and make brine, and then take that brined food and stick it in vinegar again to pickle it. And you can make it last a really long time by just leaving it in with the vinegar. But like I said, first you have to have fruit for that, and we don't. But what I do plan to do is cover the subject of one of our installed mods for Terra Firma Craft, the Cellars add-on, which lets you build cellars. And you can also store ice which lets you keep your cellars at about 1 centigrade or 0 centigrade temperature, which makes your storage actually useful. Another thing I should add about decay is that you can see how much your food has decayed. And the more decay it has, the faster it decays. But you can cut the decayed bits off with a knife to keep it from decaying any more quickly than you have to. You don't actually have to build your cellar under your house. Technically, you don't have to build it underground at all, as long as you follow the actual building structure. But I like to keep it under the house so I can take advantage of protection. And protection basically means that the more time you spend in a chunk, the less likely that mobs will spawn. It's the reason why I don't have zombies going wild in my charcoal pit. Despite the fact that that room is usually completely dark. So once we get our walls around the cellar, and I can make them a bit bigger than this, but this is the amount of materials I had, and the amount of space I'll probably need for right now anyway. We place down the ice bunker, and that means it's working. If you get a different message here, it'll tell you what's wrong with your cellar. And I have some cellar shelves, as well as some ice that I gathered during last episode when I first found out about this mod. And that will let us pretty much finish up the actual cellar. Alright, so now we can pick up these ceramic vessels that I have all the meat stored in. And this should enable them to last much longer. Okay, so we have everything stacked up on shelves. You can't put ceramic vessels in the shelves. You just have to put the actual food in there, but still, that leaves plenty of room. Sadly, you can't see the contents. But if you want, you can put signs on these things. The only three things you can put in a cellar are shelves, barrels, and signs. And there's one other thing about preservation that I could mention. and that is salt. Most of your foods you can put salt on, or craft them with salt, in order to slow down their decay rate. Salt's a little hard to get a hold of, though. Pretty much you have to be near salt rock, which we're not. But perhaps I will find some during my future explorations. Cooked food decays half as fast as uncooked meat. And most of these preservation methods stack with each other. You can check the wiki to see which ones don't. So, there we have agriculture and preservation in one short episode that hopefully wasn't too boring, but hopefully was informative. Next episode, perhaps I'll do something more entertaining. Until then, have some fun, build something cool, and have a nice day.